The morning sun crested the horizon, spilling golden light over the vast expanse of rural Utah. At 46, Claire had made a name for herself in the field of environmental biology. But today's survey work felt different. She had been tasked with assessing the flora and fauna of a remote property in the foothills of the Wasatch Range, an area known for its rugged beauty and isolation. Claire parked her truck at the edge of the property, the crunch of gravel underfoot echoing in the stillness. The air was crisp and clean, a stark contrast to the urban environment she was used to. After checking her equipment, a notebook, GPS device, and sampling tools, she stepped into the dense thicket of trees. The trail wound through a patchwork of wildflowers and tall grasses, sunlight dancing through the leaves overhead. As she ventured deeper into the woods, Claire began her survey, taking notes on the diverse plant species that flourished in the area. She was in her element, the quiet beauty of nature soothing her busy mind. The sound of birds chirping and leaves rustling created a symphony of serenity around her. After a couple of hours, Claire decided to explore a particularly thick area of trees that she had spotted earlier. She made her way off the beaten path, the foliage closing in around her. With every step, the forest seemed to grow denser and darker, the sunlight filtering through the canopy more sporadically. The deeper she went, the more the sounds of the forest changed. The chirps and rustles faded, leaving a heavy silence that wrapped around her like a thick blanket. Claire paused, a sense of unease creeping up her spine. She shook her head, dismissing it as exhaustion. After years of fieldwork, she was used to the solitude and even the odd sensations that came with it. Taking a deep breath, she resumed her survey, focusing on the details of the flora around her. Suddenly, a sound caught her attention. It was a soft rustling, different from the wind through the leaves or the movement of animals. The sound seemed deliberate, almost as if something was moving through the underbrush. Claire turned, her heart quickening. She had always been cautious in the woods, aware of the wildlife that called these trees home. But this sound was unlike anything she had heard before. Curiosity piqued. She stepped closer to the source of the noise, moving slowly and quietly. As she pushed aside a thick branch, her breath caught in her throat. Just. Beyond the brush, she caught sight of something pale, almost ethereal, slinking low to the ground. It was unlike any creature she had ever seen. Pale skin stretched tightly over a thin, elongated body, with long, spindly limbs that seemed to twitch as it moved. The figure was crawling on all fours, its face obscured by the foliage. Claire's heart raced. Was this a trick of the light? Some rare animal she had never encountered? But instinct screamed at her to turn back. As she took a step back, the creature paused, and a cold dread washed over her. It turned its head slowly, revealing a gaunt face with sunken eyes that gleamed with an unnatural intensity. Claire stumbled back, the shock of the sight sending her heart into a frenzy. Before she could react, the creature lunged forward with startling speed, its limbs moving in an unnatural manner, almost as if it glided rather than crawled. Claire's mind raced, and panic took hold. She turned and ran, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Branches whipped against her arms and legs, the sharp pain only fueling her desperation. The sounds of her own heartbeat thudded in her ears, drowning out the forest. She pushed herself harder, forcing her legs to move faster as she navigated the winding paths back toward the truck. Glancing back, she saw the figure was still pursuing her, its pale form almost blending into the trees but distinctly following her every move. Claire's breath came in gasps as she stumbled through the underbrush, fear propelling her forward. She could hear it, its movements swift and eerie, echoing through the silence of the woods. Just as she thought she might escape, she felt a chill run down her spine as the figure drew closer, its haunting presence lingering just behind her. Finally, she burst into a clearing, the sunlight hitting her face like a wave of relief. Her truck sat in the distance, a sanctuary against the nightmare that had pursued her. She sprinted toward it, fumbling for her keys in a panic. As she reached the vehicle, Claire turned to glance back into the woods. The creature had stopped at the edge of the tree line, its eyes still fixed on her, watching with an unsettling intensity. She quickly jumped into the truck, locking the doors with trembling hands. Once inside, Claire fumbled with the ignition, her fingers shaking. She finally got the engine to roar to life, and without a second thought, she peeled out of the clearing, gravel flying behind her. As she drove away, Claire's mind raced, grappling with the horror of what she had just experienced. What had she seen? Some kind of creature? Or was it a figment of her imagination, brought on by fatigue and isolation? But the image of that pale, gaunt figure, those sunken eyes, stayed with her. As the miles between her and the woods grew, she felt a sense of relief wash over her, but also a lingering fear. The forest had held secrets she was never meant to uncover. Weeks passed, and the memory of that day haunted her. Claire returned to her office, surrounded by colleagues and the familiar hum of university life. But she was different. Her experiences in the woods had left a mark on her psyche. No longer could she walk through a forest without feeling the weight of unseen eyes upon her. Claire's surveys continued, but she avoided isolated areas. She stuck to the well-trodden paths and daylight hours, sharing her findings with her colleagues while carefully omitting the details of her encounter. But deep down, she knew what she had seen was real. The pale crawler lingered in her thoughts, a reminder that not all the mysteries of nature are meant to be uncovered. One evening, while going through her field notes, Claire stumbled across the sketch she had made during her time in the woods. She had drawn a simple outline of the creature, a way to process the fear she had felt. But now, looking at it under the harsh light of her office, it seemed more vivid, more alive. As she studied the sketch, she heard a sound outside her window, soft and scratching. Claire's heart raced as she turned her gaze toward the darkening woods just beyond her yard. In that moment, she felt the weight of her experience heavy in the air, the unsettling reminder that some things, once encountered, never truly let go.